So I would be asking a different question. I would be challenging my leaders to say, what are we going to do with that oil? Not how are we going to divide up the revenue. What are we going to do with the oil? That's a mistake that Nigeria made, and I'm sure that our colleagues would admit that. That oil is like a cake that someone comes and bakes for you, and they'll pay for the ingredients, and they'll bake it. And your job is to decide, well, how much of the cake am I going to have? And that's, you end up, what ends up, you get into thinner and thinner slices. The president takes his bit, the regions take their bit, the president's friends take their bit, the president's cousins take their bit, until there's a change of president, and then there's a new. So what happens is the elite focus on dividing up the revenues of the cake that someone else has built. What you should be doing, lessons learned from other countries, is what do we want to do, what development do we want to get from the oil, not the revenues, what do we want to use the oil to do in terms of the country, what do we want to achieve? How do we bake a bigger cake? Let's focus on making the cake bigger rather than just dividing up the cake. I've had, just today, someone came up to me and said, one of the regions in Uganda said, we want to know how do we best divide up the revenues, to get more to the revenue to the local area, to where the oil deposits are. But again, it's the wrong question. In my opinion, it's the wrong question. It's focusing on dividing up the revenues rather than thinking about what do we want, what's the purpose of the oil, what's our vision. And then the third big question is, what's the best way to govern the oil sector? Now, there is so much best practice around the world. I know Uganda's using Norwegian experts. There's a lot of best practice. Now, there really is. In our study that we did at Chatham House, we found there wasn't one ideal governance system because every country is different and you need to adapt it. But there are certain principles that are the same. We got about 21 of the major producing countries in the room represented to discuss what was good governance to them. The whole thing is accountability, where you guys come in. Accountability for decision making and performance. How do you hold your decision makers to account? How do you hold, not just for the decisions they make, but performance of the agencies? If you have a regulator, who is holding the regulator to account for its performance? So having a whole system of accountability is key. It's interesting when you talk to the Saudis. We talked to Saudi Aramco. They said we are the best run oil company, best governed oil company bar none. We are audited by an international auditor every year. We produce audited accounts. No one's better. And he said, well, who gets to see the annual accounts? Oh, well, 3 people. The king and his 2 brothers. I mean, it's really. So different countries have different ways of being accountable. And then obviously, to be accountable, you need transparency, which is where what we're talking about today. You cannot hold agencies, companies to account unless you have the information to allow you to do that. But all that I would want to say is that transparency has to be as part of an overall system of governance that works. Because you can be transparently making the wrong decisions. Well, I think, that's really just about all I wanted to say. Although I was, reminded my mother always used to say to me, and I think it's probably relevant to what we're talking about. There was a hope for the best, but plan for the worst. And with regard to overseeing the oil and gas sector,